Hello, my name is Kyra Haglund. I'm a licensed clinical social worker, a somatic experiencing practitioner, and a yoga teacher of about 20 years living in Los Angeles, California. My work for the last decade plus has been to support leaders in the field of mental health, education, and wellness around trauma resolution and how mind body approaches can be really supportive in creating more self regulation and healing. I feel really honored to be connected with DVSA supervision and research. And I hope that some of these practices are just will add to your toolkit of your own self-regulation and stress management in some way. I also want to take a moment to thank you for the work, the research, and the support you do in the field of domestic violence and sexual assault. Uh, It impacts people's lives and often changes them. And as a social worker, I know firsthand how exhausting and difficult this work can be at times. Compassion fatigue, burnout, vicarious trauma, all of those are real. And my own experiences made one of the reasons why I'm really passionate about how we can center mind body practices, not just for survivors of trauma, but also for those working in the fields of it. Over the last 30 years or so, neuroscience has shown that trauma is not just a psychological or an emotional problem, but it actually causes physiological dysregulation in the brain and in the bodies. Right? So, regardless of the cause of the stress, chronic stress, or trauma, we hold the issues in our tissues, as they say, right? It's in our bodies. And that's why it's really essential that we learn to work with the bodies to be able to create more safety, to release the tension, and to heal ourselves. Current day science is finally substantiating what yogis knew a long time ago, that yoga is effective at improving affect regulation, managing anxiety, reducing trauma symptoms, improving one's relationship with their own body, as well as improving self confidence and creating more and just restoring the ability to self regulate and co regulate. And to me, that's what this is all about. How do we increase our own capacity as well as our collective capacity to be more grounded, centered, and present moment so we can be more responsive rather than reactive and make our decisions and choices with our long term higher values in mind? So these practices are all designed to be for your well being, and they can be accessible for standing and for seated, right? Some of them are going to work for you and some of them won't. And that's absolutely okay because nervous system regulation just is not a one size fits all process. I'm going to encourage you to get curious and just check in with you and see and listen to what's happening within your body and in your heart. Take what works, right? And leave what doesn't. Totally okay. Now, I find that slowing down helps me tune into what's actually happening inside, but feel free to set the pace that works for you. Make it a little faster, a little slower, and know that it's always, always okay to take a break. Always. And lastly, about 3,500 years ago, yoga philosophy suggested some guidelines for the practice. Okay? Two of the principles I find to be invaluable are ahimsa and satya. Ahimsa means non harming, right? So during this practice, you are just not allowed to hurt yourself in your mind, in your body, or in your heart. Sorry, right? But that doesn't mean that the practices are always going to be easy or comfortable. Part of our work here, working with the body, is to help us to cultivate the capacity to touch into our tension and be with the intensity and the discomfort so it can move through us rather than stay within us and control us at often unconscious levels. Okay? But the practices are never supposed to cause harm. And the second principle is satya, or truth. So try to be honest with yourself about what's happening, what works for you and what doesn't. Right? So you can become even more attuned and get better at attending, creating that relationship with yourself around what your needs are. I find that being fully honest with oneself takes a lot of courage, but that courage paves the way for fierce well being at both the individual and collective levels. All right. So, with all that being said, I'm so glad you're here. I hope that some of this is useful to you in some way. And wherever you are right now in the world, I hope that you are well. I hope that you are truly well. Thank you so much for joining me.